Did you know that almost half of today's late loans are one loan type? I just got back from a real estate conference where we heard from a national real estate data expert, and he doesn't seem to think that foreclosures are a big problem. He swept it under the rug. I know better. I've been tracking the foreclosures in Southern California. We are seeing a big increase in the first stages of foreclosure and this one particular loan type. And you don't want all your eggs in one basket. You definitely don't want all your foreclosures in this basket. It's time for the Southern California Foreclosure Report. So first things first, we're going to look at yearly data. So this is REOs, real estate owned. These are properties that went back to the bank. We're comparing 2025 all the way back to 2015. And of course, you can see very quickly and easily that the trend has been down since 2015. The dip 2020, 2021, well, that was when we had the foreclosure moratorium, and we're starting to see things go the other way. Now, a lot of folks in foreclosure have equity, so they don't have to worry as much about going all the way through the foreclosure process. They can sell and walk away with some cash, although there is an exception that we'll talk about later in this video. And we can see that before COVID, more normal times, there still are, in any given market, there's going to be foreclosures. Now, here's where it gets interesting, context and perspective. Holy smokes, 2011, when we see in LA the number of properties that went back to the bank, almost 19,000 properties in the year 2011 went back to the bank. And don't forget that in addition to REO properties, you got standard sales and we had short sales back then. So a whole lot of inventory, a whole lot of choice for buyers. That's why we saw prices decimated back then. Looking at 2025, especially in this graph, it looks like there's almost nothing going on, but there still are properties making it all the way through the foreclosure process. So it is worthwhile to track these. And we've talked about that before. Let's take a turn and look at December data. Now we're looking at the notices of default. Notice of default is the first public stage of the foreclosure process. Somebody misses a payment, a minimum of 120 days later, the notice of default will be filed. And everybody knows they're behind on payments then because it's a public document. Now, 120 days is the minimum. Often it's longer. We're going to share with you how long the foreclosure process is taking across the nation. There is an increase in all cases for the notices of default that were filed in December. December typically a slower month for notices of default being filed because of the holidays. In many cases, lenders will take a break and then pick it up in the new year. But we're still seeing that year over year, that's a big increase. In many Southern California counties, we haven't seen this many notices of default filed going all the way back to 2015. And let's bring in 2011. And we're not too far off in some cases for some of the Southern California counties. So we're seeing more people entering the beginning public stage of foreclosure. Let's see what's going on with the notice of trustee sale. Here, we're also seeing an increase. Now, 2015, we had more still unwinding from the global financial crisis, but that's a big increase, particularly in Los Angeles. So this is filed a minimum of 90 days after the notice of default, and it will have a sale date that's a minimum of 21 days later. That's what's on the notice of trustee sale. It's a actual notice of the sale date. What we saw in doing these videos that we were getting an increase in the notices of default, but we weren't seeing it go into the next phase. Because again, they can take longer than that 90 days. Now we're starting to see it go into the next phase. If these folks don't sell, and in some cases, maybe they don't have equity, they bought at a time where they don't have much equity, and we'll talk about that in a minute, these folks will make it all the way through the foreclosure process. Now, you bring in 2011, a whole lot more notices of trustee sale back then. Makes today look like not much is going on. But it is important. We are seeing an increase in defaults. And if you want to track and find a deal, now's the time to be doing it. And the years up until now is pretty uneventful, but now we're starting to see more of these sticking to the bone. Now, looking at the properties that go back to the bank. So this is the auction occurs at the courthouse steps in many cases, and nobody buys it. So it doesn't actually get purchased by a third party. And nobody delayed the sale, which there are several new ways to do that in the state of California. And you can see the increase from 2020 all the way through 2025, we are seeing more for most of Southern California counties. After the trustee sale, some of these may be purchased in the SB 1079 process and won't make it to standard listing, where there's a first look process, which means investors can't write offers for 30 days. And then we bring in 2015 to 2019, more normal years. And properties were making it through the foreclosure process. 2015 unwinding from the global financial crisis. Crazy when you compare it to 2011 for the number of properties that made it all the way back to the bank in December. So 1,400 properties were foreclosed on in LA in 2011, December. That's a lot of properties. And it wouldn't be a Southern California Foreclosure Report without looking at the Mortgage Monitor Report. So this is from December of 2025, but they're using data from October of 2025. And first things first, we are down month over month for foreclosures. They tend to slow as we get into the end of the year around the holidays. We see fewer foreclosure filings filed because of the holidays. And we're getting to those pre-pandemic normal foreclosure levels. But what's scary in this is the seriously past due FHA loans. I'm going to show you just how scary it is for that loan type. The seriously past due mortgages, 90 plus days late. This chart shows us just how serious it is for both VA and FHA loans, which are both generally low down payment loans. But in more specifically, FHA loans, they are at the highest percentage of seriously past due mortgages than we've had all the way going back to 2000. Now, don't misread this chart. It isn't saying necessarily that there's more FHA loans that are seriously past due than we've ever had in the past. Each one of these slices is 100% of the seriously past due mortgages. We had way more seriously past due mortgages back here during the global financial crisis. What this chart is showing us is that this is the highest percentage for the given seriously past due mortgages. And again, we're getting to those pre-COVID foreclosure levels, going back to more normal levels, but we're seeing way more FHA loans that are in trouble. The other thing that makes it even crazier, basically the special protections for FHA loans expired at the end of September 2025. This data is October 2025. So it's just as those special loss mitigation protections were expiring. So we expect to see a big spike in FHA loans becoming delinquent and ultimately moving into foreclosure. When they tell you not to put all your eggs in one basket, you don't want all your eggs in one basket when it comes to foreclosures either. If you're seeing it in FHA loans, that's a very specific price point and very specific type of homeowner who is going to be facing foreclosure. And this could have big repercussions in the market if we see these properties make it all the way through the foreclosure process. And one more hot detail, a lot of these loans originated 2022 and later. Those folks are either break even at equity or upside down on equity. So they can't sell and walk away with a pile of cash like some others can who have conventional financing or those who bought before 2022. Are you a buyer or seller with a complex real estate portfolio? You know who you are. Reach out to our team. That's our specialty. One last quick statistic that's worth knowing related to foreclosures. We're going to look at this column here, average days delinquent for foreclosure. So somebody misses a payment, how long before they're foreclosed on? Well, back here in 2023, we saw 972 days. And now in 2025, we're seeing 632. So a big drop of almost an entire year in the foreclosure process. And don't forget, this blends judicial and non-judicial foreclosures. Judicial means it goes in front of a judge. Non-judicial, like California, doesn't need to go in front of a judge. That's a quicker process. Why do we have this drop? Well, it's very simple. All the special COVID forbearance programs for all loan types have now expired. So as they've expired, we've seen this number drop, and we expect this number to continue to drop. It still takes almost 2 years for the foreclosure process. Foreclosure.com is our preferred resource currently, and you can even get a free preview if you're not going to spend the money monthly to get these sent to you directly to your email inbox. You sign up for a particular zip code, and it'll send you the properties without the addresses, and you can do more research from there. I'd highly recommend getting a free preview for your city or zip code, because We're seeing these notices, they're going out, and I'm getting more and more emails from foreclosure.com. So if you're looking for a deal, this could be the way to get there. Use our link below for foreclosure.com. Now that you know where foreclosures are in Southern California, you need to check out this next video right here to see what else is going on in the Southern California housing market.